folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the great human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. So happy to have you here today, folks. We got a great show for you. We have Brian Becker on board. He's an Enneagram 9 licensed professional counselor. Brian is a certified clinical trauma professional. He practices EMDR and internal family systems. He works at Restoring the Soul, which is an amazing Colorado-based ministry that offers intensive counseling, including 1 and 2 week intensives. And they're designed for individuals and couples seeking deep emotional and spiritual healing. It's a great place to go to, folks. And we're super happy that Brian is with us. He's an Enneagram 9, as I said earlier, and we talk sort of all things Enneagram 9, how the Enneagram 9 can tend to disappear, how to find your anger, what that journey looks like. Great conversation today with Brian. Glad you're here. That's it for me, Anthony. And without any further ado, it's time for the man of the hour, Ian Cron.
Hey, Typology friends, every now and then I get a special treat. You know, oftentimes the guests that we have on the show are people who've just written books or starred in movies or dropped a new record or are out in the podcast space with, a message that is around a product of some kind. And today I have on somebody who's here simply because he's a good friend. And he's a good friend with a lot of great wisdom. Please welcome Brian Becker, Enneagram 9, therapist at Restoring the Soul in Denver, Colorado, and my friend and soon-to-be pilgrimage pal, since we're walking across in the steps of St. Columba in Scotland in just about 8 weeks' time. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ian. It's really great to be here.
So before we, get into the Enneagram or, adjacent topics, just tell folks who you are. Like, where did you grow up? What was your family like? And here's an interesting way of putting it. What did the world feel to you like as a kid?
Sure. That's a great question. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My dad was a research scientist, probably an Enneagram 1. My mom was an avid golfer and tennis player, fierce competitor. My dad had gone to New Mexico 2 years in the military and then joined a research institute out there, and they moved out there. And so grew up in Albuquerque, went to school at the University of Colorado, and eventually joined the staff of a Christian organization and worked with them for about 28 years. And then I transitioned into being a full-time therapist. So I'd say in terms of family growing up, my dad, like I said, had that one perfectionist kind of piece to it. My mom was probably a 3 with a 2 wing or a 2 with a 3 wing. And so there was... they were really good at providing for us and taking care of us. There wasn't as much emotional attention to us. And so I think for me, what I remember, probably the thing that sticks out to me is I remember, and this isn't uncommon probably for boys to do, but I remember building a lot of forts as a kid. And what I remember about that was it wasn't a place to go play with other kids, but it was a place to be by myself. Like it was almost like I built forts as a means of self-protection. And so there was things that to me, like when I think back of the memories I have, and there's a lot of memories I don't have. And that's where I wondered sometimes like maybe dissociating or disconnecting to get through life feels like it was definitely operative for me. But I definitely remember being overwhelmed by life and kind of this need to either distract or kind of numb myself and kind of get through it, especially when it came to kind of overwhelming things. Things like simple as going to football practice, as an overweight kind of awkward kid. And it was just like football practice terrified me, but some reason I kept going to it. But I would remember sitting there for like an hour before practice, just in my room, just going, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Right? Like, so there was a sense of like just trying to survive or get through. And I think survive feels like a word that was common. Probably the other piece is part of that survival was my sense of humor. I quickly became, my high school was the class clown, the graduating class of about 700 or so. So I quickly learned humor as a way to both kind of keep people engaged with me, make sure that I had a place. And so that was definitely a theme for me, definitely in high school. So.
Anthony, are you picking up 9 energy right now? Because I am. Everything in me is relaxing. I don't know if it's Brian's tone of voice. I don't know. What is it? What is it? I feel like I just took a Xanax.
Welcome.
Let's all exhale together.
I know between the two of you, you both have NPR voices. I feel like I'm going to be smarter by the time this conversation is over. So, Brian, at what point in your life, or asleep, right? At what point in your life did you realize that your inner experience wasn't quite what everyone else seemed to be having?
That's a great question. It's to me what there was a this thought, and it's a kind of a neurodiverse trait, but this idea of masking, like there's always something that I've felt like I've needed to figure out the code to belong, what it is. And I think that's where, like to me, the words I put to it in high school was I was a chameleon. Like I would change my colors to kind of fit in. When I'm with this group, I would talk this way. When I was with that group, I would do that way. So I think there was a degree of like familiarity to that I need to change to fit in. I think when as a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I'm blanking on when, but it was Brene Brown's books. She said, the greatest enemy of belonging is fitting in. And I remember when I read that, I go, oh man, something really hit me deep inside. It's like, I've been working to fit in my whole life. And then I go, what I want is belonging. But then I go, I don't know what belonging is. Because every time I tried to think about it, it felt like I came back to something that felt like, well, I'm just fitting in. I'm just changing to fit in. And so I think it's been in the last number of years that I felt like I have a deep, deep desire for belonging, but I have no idea what that is. And so I think that, that fitting in has been there forever, but I didn't know how much I felt like I just don't have a place to really attach. I got to morph or change or shape shift to kind of fit into this place to belong.
It's interesting. Look, first of all, when you said that, it really landed on me too. I don't know about you, Anthony, but part of me just kind of went, oh, fitting in versus belonging. Mm-hmm. In a way, we all want belonging, but we settle for fitting in.
Yeah.
Which means in order to fit in, you have to bring certain qualities, whether real or manufactured, to the surface in order to fit in, right? So like if you're hanging with a bunch of guys who are into sports, even though you're not into sports, you can take what little you have and make it sound like you know more, and you're just trying to fit in. But you're not actually experiencing belonging, because what if you were just to say to those guys, I really love being with you guys. I'm not into sports, but I belong here. There's such a difference between the two experiences that you're describing. And I can really like resonate with it. It's interesting. A little bit of what you're describing has 3 qualities to it, because that ability to be chameleon-like, we sort of peg as 3-ish.
Yep.
But I actually, and I know 9s share a line with 3, but I'm just also thinking to myself, that's just human. Like humans are just, I think 3s are particularly adept at it, but it doesn't mean that that's just something 3s do. Like all types do that at some level, right? And some, less than others. Some are,
Yeah, when I read your book on the Enneagram threes, because I know you said that's the masking or the fitting in or the script building. Like, I feel like I'm always looking for the script, right? And it's like, that's been even an intensive work that I've done for myself, right? Like, I'm always looking, okay, what's the answer they're looking for here? What do they want me to say? What are you feeling? What are you feeling in your body? And I'm like, I think you're wanting me to say something about, like, it's like to stay present with my own experience is really hard for me. It's like I just have such a default, like this investigator that's operating above that, that's going, okay, what are they looking for? What are they looking? What's the right answer? What's their model? What are they doing here, right? And that's where it's been so helpful for me to get outside of things that I don't know the script to, and be in spaces that it's like I don't know what happens next. That's absolutely terrifying, but it's also liberating because that part of me goes, well, we don't know what's going on, so we can't figure it out. So that's okay. You can sit down and rest for a while.
Right. Yes. I love this because you're kind of describing an inner world, and we don't often have guests who are articulate in that way. They're better at talking about their external world, but not their internal experience. And I think that's really good because I think, people tend to think of nines. We oftentimes say that they're the least complicated number on the Enneagram, but what we really mean by that is that what you see is what you get, right? They're there's an old joke in our family, right? Which is like, if you want someone to lie for you in court, don't ask a 9. Like that's just not what they're good at, but it doesn't make them, just because you're the least complex number doesn't mean that you're simple, right? Or simplistic. Like, I feel like 9s are actually quite complicated, but they get stereotyped as golden retrievers or something, kind of like, oh, you're just kind of like happy-go-lucky, want to please you kind of people. But it's actually far more complicated than that. Like, take us into the complicated side of 9.
Yeah, well, I would say 2 things that resonated from the webinar you did about 9s finding your voice, right? I really resonated with this need to find my voice. Mm-hmm. The second is the need to find out what my desire is. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing I realized is I think my voice started waking up, but it wasn't connected to desire. And so I found myself kind of just speaking and kind of being bitchy, if I could use that word, like just feeling like I'm just saying things just to say it, but it's not connected to what I most deeply want. And that's where connecting it to desire. And I think part of desire is actually connecting it deeper to love. And so that voice would actually emanate out of love, but also desire would be deeply connected to love. And I think that's where I just felt like, oh, I need to know what I want. Like this thought is, I get to decide who I'm going to be, how I'm going to show up today, who I'm going to be. And it's like that sense of agency, but it has to draw from deep within me. Like, this is who I want to be, not who other people expect me to be, should be, right? Like that's that fitting in piece. And it's like, there's something deep that's coming up that's like, oh, that's what I want. And that's who I want to be. And that's how I want to show up. And that's what I want to say. And I think that's been really, I think that's what that webinar really helped me to go, is like it just kind of put some pieces on the table that was really true. One of those was that poem we were just talking about, where you describe, and it was Marie.
Right, it's Rainer Marie Rilke.
Rainer Marie Rilke, right? And it has this phrase, it's like, press into the limits of your longings, right? Like, don't just go. And I remember sharing in my group on that call, right? I said, I feel like I've gone into the hallway of desire and I found a door that said some things like belonging or this or that. And it's like, oh, that's nice. That's lovely. That's a nice plaque on that door. And it's like, you kind of invited, no, you need to go into that room, right? And if you go into that room, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's probably going to cause some pain or inconvenience. And that's like, oh, that's that's the thing is like, I think I'm okay just being in the hallway and naming that there's a door there, right? Like, let's just stay here. And I think that invitation just felt like, oh, that's what that is I need to realize to pursue my desire and be present with my desire, I have to be willing to face discomfort and inconvenience of others to actually do that. And I think that felt really profound, like in the sense of like, oh, that's the barrier. It's not just the desire. It's what's that desire going to cost to actually step into it.
I have a couple questions.
Uh-oh.
One, I want to know, like, there's like, in what you just said, you mentioned there was a lot of sort of fire and desire, and I'm wondering like where that came from. But even backing up for a minute, you said you had to find your voice even before you connected it to your heart. And like you said, I was being bitchy. Like what? And sometimes we have to go through that process, right? What was it that prompted you to go, I've just got to start speaking out even if I don't know what I want? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And again, I think things started bubbling up and I found myself saying things like, I remember we had a staff meeting at our office and I just remember, I don't know what it was, but I don't think I said anything untrue, but there was an energy to it that goes, that wasn't a good energy. But it was important things to say, but it wasn't the right place or the time or the energy to it. And I had to come back and kind of, I think of that quote from, I think it was Oprah that used to have on our conference meeting room door or something that says, you're responsible for the energy you bring into this room. Right. And I just thought I brought bad energy. So what I said was true. I didn't, I needed to say it, but I also needed to come back and go, it wasn't connected to what I wanted to. It wasn't able to hold it well. It felt kind of more reactive in that moment, but it was naming something that I felt like, okay, I need to get it out. And I think there's something to that with both kind of voice and anger. It's kind of like there's a wall inside my heart and I'm kind of throwing something over the wall. And it's like, because the wall's there, it way overshoots the target. It's like the wall's got to come down. And when it does, it's going to land more appropriately inside of that. And so I think there's things that started coming up that it's like, I can't just sit by. I gotta say this. I gotta disrupt this. And it's felt like there's been more of a disruptive energy. And I think as that has connected to deeper desires, I think it's become more grounded and more stable and less reactive in that way.
Did you happen when you circled back around? I wonder if you had a discussion. Was it as intense for everyone else as it felt for you?
Yes, there was a couple of people that going, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Brian.
Oh man, Brian, I don't know. Brian's got too many coffees.
My wife has said this several times. She goes, you don't know how big you get when you get angry.
Wow.
Right. And that's so hard for me to get my head around because I feel like I'm so small and I'm just getting large enough to be at the big kids table, right? And so to me, it feels like I'm just getting up to being adult size. And she's like, no, you're way over, like your presence physically and then your voice and then your demeanor, you add to it. And it's like, I'm not aware of that because I feel so like that smallness feels inside. Like, I don't know that I belong at this table. I don't know if I should say this, right? And so that kind of awareness, like I don't have that sense when that starts going up. And so I think it was the same in that meeting. I didn't realize how intense I was sounding because I feel like I'm just getting big enough to actually say something.
Yeah, that's that. But that is true for every type doing their work. Like,
yeah,
you don't, let's say you've had a long history of kind of disappearing. And then suddenly you make your presence known and you show up. But then you over show up, like you've overcorrected. And then everyone goes, whoa, right? And then, but there's no other way to do it, right? It's
reel
like,
it back in.
yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
totally.
how you learn. And that's why I think we should use the word practice more, right? Like you have to practice these things. And then if you overshoot it, then you have to go back and you go, okay, look, I'm working on X in my life. And I know, with our mutual friends at Restoring the Soul, right? You could do that. Yeah, hey man, I'm really working on this and this is why that happened. Totally. And I'm sorry. And everyone goes, got it. No problem. Awesome. We're for you, But there's just no way to do it except by making some mistakes in the beginning.
I had a counselor say to me, he was talking about that very thing, but like, we're over here at 3:00 and there's no way just to get to 12. You swing all the way over to 9:00 and then you come back and then you eventually land there in the middle.
Yeah.
But to move from that space over, to where you want to be, you do overshoot. It's just the way it is. Yeah. What were you going to say, Brian? Sorry.
Yeah, totally. Well, I really appreciate it. That's a great analogy, right? Like, because I feel like that to me feels like the discomfort I have to face. If I'm going to have a voice, if I'm going to have desire, I have to be willing to go to 9 and then do the work to repair and come back. And you do, you know what I mean? Like, that's part of the inconvenience, right? Like, I think I was always like, how do I slowly move up to 12, right? And it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think it's being willing to face that discomfort and that pain and that need to repair.
Yeah, and the problem is you're carrying a lot of history into those conversations. So I know for me, sometimes it's like, I need to stand up for myself. And then I come and I stand up for myself and I'm bringing not just the energy of what's happening in that situation, I'm bringing the 5,000 conversations that I didn't stand up for myself in, and all of my resentment and anger that I didn't stand up for myself in those conversations, and I put them all into this one conversation, and then it's like people are like, double-barreled and, blown over by my disproportionately, unskillfully, not properly titrated response to the situation.
It's so funny. I worked at another. I was just going to say I worked at another place where I actually had a dream. Like I was just building up resentment at a place, and I had a dream that I went into a staff meeting, and just kind of unleashed. And I just remember trying to convince everybody in the staff meeting, like, come on, don't you agree with me? And they're like, we agree with you, but you're kind of overshooting it. Right. And it was just so fascinating to me. It's like, even in my sleep, I'm trying to navigate this kind of space in that way too.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes. And this is where, anger and, just learning how to be newly related to it, and also understanding that anger, I keep trying to find a better word sometimes for anger. It's life force. It's not anger in the ire sense or necessarily, though it could be that at times. It's just being plugged into this kind of juicy voltage of I am a defined self here in the room, with my own preferences, opinions, desires, hopes, longings, and something has happened that has somehow crossed a line with me, and I need to establish my presence and how I feel about it. And for a lot of 9s, man, like that's intense because, and this is why we sometimes say that particularly self-pres 9s have problems with stamina. It's because you have 2 boundaries, some teachers say. You have a boundary that is actually dampening your desire and your connection to that anger. So you have a boundary up against that. But then you also have a boundary against the world outside. So you're actually having to manage 2 boundaries at the same time, which takes more calories, which makes you more drained than a lot of people are. And so your stamina for these kinds of interactions is maybe a little bit lower. I don't know. Does that sound accurate?
No, that totally resonates. And I think that idea of like, I'm trying to shove something down where I'm also trying to guard or protect or kind of be aware of what's going on out here. And I just think that energy drain, and that's where it's like, when I can do that work, it feels so much lighter and freer, right? That I can just be like, I can let whatever's coming up and just have a place to hold that. That feels different, and it feels like there's different energy. And I think also too that I can welcome whatever comes my way in from the world, right? And I think that's where it's like, I think that there's a sense for me that I've been really wanting to like, I can't let that much in because I'm so easily overwhelmed. And I think part of the movement has been I can welcome what comes my way and I can be steady and hold that, as well as I can hold what's coming up in me, and that's okay. And I think both those works feels like it just gives me more energy and space to be with people and hold space with people, especially those close to me.
It's so funny because I was just thinking about a message that comes up for me when I get angry. And I think this is true for ones, but it does come up for me as a 4, which is when I find myself in a situation where I'm getting angry and I need to express it. The thing that sort of is the buzzkill in my brain is this message, which is like, I have to be the adult in the room right now. And some part of me is like, because I'm the therapist and I'm the priest, so I got to be the adult in the room and handle this just correctly, right? And part of me is like, no, I don't really want to be that guy. I just actually want to handle this inappropriately right now. I really want to let this out in a way that may not be helpful, but will feel good immediately. And you got to kind of balance these things, right?
Yeah.
And just, it's hard to do.
Is it easy for you to say, I want?
Yeah, that was definitely...
No, you go ahead, Brian, with your response.
No, what I was going to say was, as a child, it was definitely, I felt like the message was I was too sensitive, right? And what I was bringing up was not really welcome. And so it's like, I got to tamp that stuff down and just make sure, like, okay, that can't be here, because you can't pitch a fit. You can't have hard feelings. You can't be overly emotive in that way. And so, yeah, I think your question, though, Anthony, was, do I have a hard time saying what I want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I led an integration group, and we had several 9s, and that's one of the things we all practiced, just saying, I want X, I want Y, I want Z, Yeah,
totally difficult for me to do that, right? Like, I think one of the words that goes in my head is, I don't want to be a burden or an obligation to somebody. And so I think what's going on in the back of my mind is, like, when people go, well, what do you want? It's your birthday. What do you want for dinner? And it's like, well, I know they don't want this and they don't want this, and then it's like, well, okay, I don't want to be a burden, make them eat some, do you know what I mean? There's a sense of, like, when I find myself being an obligation to somebody or a duty, there's something that just really reacts in me. And it's like, that's the last thing I want in that. And so I think I'm really sensitive, like, to that sense of, like, is this somebody that I can really trust with what I want? And I think that's part of the question I have is this a space or place where I could really trust that they will handle well what I want and be able to hold that?
Hey, Typology listeners, like you, I strive to know myself better and become a more compassionate and self-aware person, both at home and at work. Now, by far, the Enneagram is the best tool I have found for helping me to realize that in my life. And while taking an Enneagram test to help figure out your type is a great starting point, many tests out there provide content that is difficult to digest on your own, not to mention the fact that many tests are poorly constructed. That's why I've worked hard for the past few years to create a quick and research-backed assessment that provides straightforward insights specific for your type, subtype, and wing, while also being easy to understand. Simply put, my new Typology Institute Enneagram assessment offers incredibly useful information that you can use immediately to incorporate the genius of the Enneagram into every area of your life. And as a Typology listener, you can take 10% off your assessment when you enter the discount code Typology Podcast on the checkout page. Just visit typologyinstitute.com/assessments to get your results today. Yeah. Faith is important to you, as it is for Anthony and I. And yeah. I'm thinking about, this, obviously this is not a perfect parallel, but, Jesus saying, whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. And I always think for 9s that's almost darkly funny, You know what I mean? Because self-loss is the problem of nines, right? Not the path. And so
maybe we do need a different verse. If you ever find your life, you'll be then free to lose it. So then you can.
Yeah. But there is a great spiritual truth there, right? Like you have to kind of find a self before you can lose it, before you can let it go, right? But if you have an ill-defined sense of self, there's no self to let go. And so, or not one that is in your awareness. So like, how do you do that as Brian?
Yeah. I think there is a sense of like, I need to find something first so then I can lay it down. Right. And there's kind of a sense of like, that's part of maybe finding my voice, and my desire is like, I need to find it so then I can decide what to do with it in that way. And so, I just think to me, it feels like the work has been to actually go, what is going on inside of me? What's going on in my body? What's going on with my desires? And how do I bring that to the table? I think that the dichotomy that's gone on in me is I don't want anything, or I feel like I should demand it, right? Like there's no middle ground of being able to hold desire with an open hand. And I think that's where it's like I've either just kind of completely resigned myself, I'm not ever going to get this stuff, or I'm just going to hold it with an iron fist and demand you must give it to me now. And those are rarer to do that, but it's this idea of like, how do I hold something that I actually want and be able to go, and how do I not control the outcome of that? And that feels like that feels different than resigning it. Like I'm still being very present to the desire, but I'm also not demanding like I must have this right now. And yet,
right? Like it's interesting when I had a couple of counsels a few years ago, and he was a 9, she was a 5, and he had kind of lost the respect of his partner, right? And because he just wouldn't assert himself, he just wouldn't show up, and it was driving the 5 crazy, right? And so they were like, I said, you have this Mr. Nice Guy persona, and you're always thinking about, how to show up as that. And I'm like, it's just, it might be nice, but it is actually really unattractive. And I said, so I want you to show up and bring the fullness of what you want. And so this person, the 5 had been kind of fooling around or on the edges of fooling around with somebody else. And I said, you need to go in there and say, hell no, I will serve you papers. I will leave this relationship, right? Like, and he did, like he went in hard. And you know what happened next? They made love.
That's so hot.
Hello. So when that desire showed up and wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it was like, oh, that is hot. And I think that happens a lot with somebody's here, and it's like, hello. And that person is boundaried. They're strong. They have energy. And it psychologically speaking, that makes total sense, right? It's like that suddenly you have to be a someone in order to be the object of someone else's desire.
Yeah.
Like, and so he showed up. Like sometimes 9s, when they're really unhealthy, I say, so-and-so is not a person. They're an environment. They're just, there's nothing there. It's just this sort of peaceful environment, but it's undefined.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yes, it's see-through. It's almost like you could walk through them.
Yeah.
And when a 9 starts to become solid, then, it's really exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really a helpful picture, because I like that idea of just being really solid, that And being able to say that, I think those have been words probably going back to 2003, did an intensive, and that was one of my kind of words of direction is, right, like to become solid, right, to become substantial, to be differentiated or separate, right? And I just think that counters that sense of merging that tends to go on for nines, right? Like, I'm going to become like you. How do I become my own sense of self, right? How do I have a sense of this is who I am, and yet not take away space from you, but also just holding my own space, like, this is me, right? This is who I am. I think that song from Greatest Showman, right? This is me, right? Like, that feels like that energy. I'm just being unapologetically me, and I'm not going to hold that back.
I love that. Unapologetically me.
Mm-hmm.
That's got some good nine juice all over it for sure. I love that. So in your marriage or when you're, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the other word that really has landed for me is like, I need to enter into the spacious mystery of who I am, right? Like that, like you said earlier, right? I'm much more complicated than I've ever given myself credit for, right? Like, when you're just always morphing and merging, you have no sense of depth. And yet there's this sense of like, oh, there's a lot of rooms back in this house called Brian, right? Like, and there's room and energy to kind of step into that and own that.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about relationships for a second.
Sure.
Friends. Let's talk about guy friends. We're always talking about partners and spouses. Let's talk about guy friends for a second.
Sure.
What is it that guys bump into with you? Like, what's the thing that about you that's hardest for them to access or reach?
That's a great question. I have a group of guys I meet with on Saturday or Sundays now, but I'll ask them that question. But I think there is a sense of like, what do you want? Right. And I think there's a sense of like, I kind of dance around it. I don't get at it when it comes to our relationships and kind of what we're doing. I think there's things that bubble up in that context that it's like, how do I bring this to them? And so I think there's an axis to what are you actually thinking about? And I think part of that is, do they get the mess, right? I think my family gets kind of a more unfiltered version of me. I think they get much more manicured version of me in that way. And I think over the years that's changed, and there's just been enough life drama that's changed somewhat. But I think they probably go, where's the mess? Where's the unmanicured part, right? And I think the more I've brought that, again, interesting to me, the more I've brought that, it's like you said, it feels like they're more connected, or the relationship deepens when it's messier, when it's undone, when it's incomplete. And I think that feels really meaningful in the sense of those relationships.
Yeah, I think universally, the thing I hear from nines, story after story, people who know nines, that when they show up, other people are so excited, so happy, that you think that the nine would keep it up, but sometimes they back off, you know? So I'm wondering, like, is this something you are do you intend these things on a daily basis? Like, to say, I am showing up today in a more substantive, material way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I've put it that way. I think over the last year or so, I started doing a meditation that kind of came from Dan Siegel. He has a thing called the Wheel of Awareness, and I kind of adapted it for myself. And that's just this idea of slowing down to be present. Can I welcome what's going on in my body? Can I welcome the emotions that are coming up? Can I welcome the churning thoughts and ideas that are going on through my brain? Can I welcome the grief that's going on? And I think the grief has been a surprising one, right? Like, I think I've felt really disconnected from grief, and it's like, can I be present with that? And in a sense, give them a seat, all those things, a seat at the table. So it's just like, I'm just being present with me and what's going on. And I think that has felt like I'm more connected to myself when I'm showing up in relationships. And so it feels like there's more accessibility to others because of that. I don't know that I've had that intention of like, what am I bringing into this conversation? And I think feels like an excellent next step of that is like, how do I have that kind of meditation even before going into a group? And I think when I have done that, right, is it just allows me to welcome myself and then be a place of like, can I welcome whatever they're bringing to that and not feel like it has to fit a form in that way too. And so I think sometimes that scripting energy goes back to them as like, what are they bringing and how are they going to fit into what we're doing? Or can I welcome wherever they're at and whatever they're bringing to that process? So.
Yeah, we just had the Buddhist teacher Susan Piver on the show, and she just wrote a book called The Buddhist Enneagram. Super fascinating. But one of the things that I loved that she said was that when anger shows up or when envy shows up or when shame shows up, she invites it in for tea.
I love that. Yeah. I think that feels like, to me, is like, how do I welcome that part of me? Because it's like, I'm so used to just like playing whack-a-mole and like, let's get that thing down. Like what's that doing here? And so that idea of welcoming it in and saying, like, to me, that's where it's like welcoming that anger feels like it's going to lead me back to desire, and it's probably going to lead me into some grief, right? Like there's something that's connected to all of that that's really important, right? And it's like when I hammer down anger and just kind of dissociate from it or disconnect from it, I'm not going to get to those other parts of my heart that are really important.
Yes, I love that. And I love this idea that I love those words, material, a person of substance. I love the word substance because these are all things that are actual form, right? Like you can't matter unless you're material. Those words derive, I think, from the same word, right? Like there's no such thing as mattering unless you're material, meaning present, fully there. Now, a lot of times when desire or anger or things like that come up for nines, they narcotize because it's unsettling.
Totally.
And then there's this anxiety about, like, what am I going to do with this desire? Or what am I going to do when the desire might lead to disconnection with other people? So do you have a favorite go-to fix or, numbing
drug
agents that you love? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say over my life, it's been food for sure. Like food's probably number one, just because I remember that distinctly as a kid coming back from school, and it's just like, man, I'm going to make triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and just sit in front of the TV. That would be my second one, right? So it's food and TV were early on, like I was just trained in that, and I think that's carried on through my life. I think it morphed probably into scrolling on phones. Do you know what I mean? Anything that disconnects me from that. And so I think that the work of presencing myself to myself is really important. But I think it all comes back to I'm really good at numbing and dissociating and distracting myself from those things. And again, TV, devices, food. I think food has always felt like, man, I just want to feel full, right? And it's like eat to feeling that extent. And it's like, because I don't want to be empty, right? Like that sense of emptiness feels even harder to hold that. And so, I can definitely feel that. I feel like the idea of dissociating or disconnecting has felt like it's been there for a long time. And that's where it's like my memory of things is really spotty, partly probably because I've dissociated or disconnected from a lot of life when life gets overwhelming, especially.
Wow. Man, Anthony, I got a better view of the inside of nine today. What about you?
Yeah, this is good. Appreciate you showing up to us, Brian.
So rich, and I'm so glad we're not talking about your latest book.
Humility and How I Attained It.
Exactly.
No, I did want to say, my group of guys that we meet on Saturdays, our last book that we did was your book, Ian, The Fix, and it was super meaningful and helpful. And it was interesting because I was just listening to another book by a guy, Martin Shaw, and it was called Courting the Wild Twin. And he has a statement in there, and he says, bad storytellers cast spells. Good storytellers break them. And I would just want you to hear, right, your book really broke a lot of spells. And I think
wow.
it's going to keep doing that, right? Like, I just think that's the power of that book, the power of the stories that are in there, right? Like, I clearly remember a ton of stories in there. Like, they just really resonated with me. And I think the biggest one was the gift of just the step 4, right? You really reframed just how to view the story, and that work of doing that is like, this is welcoming all my story and unburdening something. And I felt like it was a real invitation to go deeper in that. So I just would want to say that, that book was a gift. And there's a number of the guys in my group that it really was super helpful just to step into their own stories and step into their own life and kind of the way they're living life in a very different way. So huge gift.
That's awesome, Brian. Thank you. That means a lot to me. And that's the hope every author has, is that the things that they say are going to land somewhere in a way that is, going to make a meaningful difference for people. And your conversation with us today has made a meaningful difference. And Anthony, I love you, brother. I love doing this with you. 10 years of this nonsense.
I love you as well. Thank you, Ian. Love doing this work with you, and thanks for being with us, Brian.
Yeah, you bet. Appreciate both of you guys.
And all of you guys listening, may you have love, may you have joy, may you have peace, may you have healing, may you have rest. Until next time.